Now, lots of folks, when I suggest that they're not their story, push back. They say, what do you mean? They're offended by that idea. Are you saying that what happened to me didn't happen? Are you saying that my biography is just a fantasy? Of course not. Of course not. What we're doing simply is inviting people to consider that what they actually are is much greater, much more compelling, much more expansive than this narrative simulacrum that they call themselves. Because the fact is, and we all know it in our gut, that narratives are never quite real. In fact, true story is an oxymoron. It's an oxymoron because stories of necessity are always interpretations of reality. Stories are segments of authenticity. They're framings of selected experience constructed using a man-made sequence, a sequence that we have invented for ourselves. Every story has a frame, and every frame, by definition, leaves things out. So to say that something is a true story, regardless of how closely you adhere to the facts, is not strictly true because the story always leaves things out. And that's what the story-making mind does as well. I am this, I am not that. That's acceptable, that isn't acceptable. This will gain me love and acceptance, that will lead to rejection, and that's how the shadow is formed, and that's how a very narrow sense of self comes into existence. In the same way that a map is different from the territory, the story is different from the self. In nature, there are no hard boundaries. There are no maps in nature. There are no stories in nature either. There are things that happen. There are conditions, and then how we explain them becomes the narrative. That becomes the story of our lives. So while maps and stories are certainly useful for navigating through the world and the complex creature that we are, they don't define us. They don't define us. Now, that information can be confusing at first, but ultimately it comes as a great relief. Because the witness isn't a story. The witness isn't a thing. The witness isn't this little homunculus inside your mind that is solid and unchanging. Instead, the witness is a portal. It's a perspective. It provides objectivity and distance from the slings and arrows of our lives so that we're not completely trapped inside our own circumstances.